What's going on, everybody? Once again, this is your boy Zeke Arkham, the original cop with attitude, the notorious COP. And I got a guy here who I've been watching for a while. He's actually a pretty good dude. He's actually, you know what I call you, bro? I call you like low key genius because I watch some of your stuff on YouTube, on TikTok,
Uh-huh.
and you're like really factually based. As I'm thinking of a lot of these, I'm watching these videos and a lot of the things that they're saying. And I'm thinking of how I'm going to form the answer in my head. I watch your video and it's almost like you read my mind and you thought of everything I was going to say to come back at these guys. So everybody, give it up for my friend Officer Nate Sylvester. What's going on, brother? How you feeling?
I'm good, man. Thanks for that intro. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Now, I first saw you, I think, the way everyone else saw you, when you kind of put LeBron in his place.
Yeah.
And I thoroughly enjoyed that because I've been roasting LeBron for a couple of weeks before that. Because LeBron is just all knowing. He knows everything. He knows the perfect response for what everyone's supposed to be doing. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh yeah, he's an expert in everything, especially policing. I'm just an old boy from Idaho, born and raised here for the most part. I mean, I spent some time in Mississippi because that's where my mom's family's from. Had aspirations of being a police officer when I was a little kid, kind of like we all do at times. But those aspirations sort of dwindled as I became older and focused on other things that at the time I thought were a little more realistic and probably more lucrative, definitely more lucrative because police officers make pennies. But my opportunity to start in policing just kind of fell in my lap one day back in 2005. It was December of 2005. The Twin Falls Police Department was looking to sort of expedite the hiring of 3 officers. And, I showed up and threw my hat into the ring. And it was funny because, you do the physical fitness test first so they can kind of weed out everybody who's not physically capable of doing the job. And I remember looking around at all these military guys, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, they got their track suits on, their military issued track suits that they brought with them. I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, there's no way I'm going to get hired. You got all these guys with all this military experience. So, I passed the physical test, and just sort of kept getting, sort of graduated to each, subsequent process of the, process in the hiring process. And eventually they offered me the job, and I got hired with 3 other guys, and, they sent us all to post like 3 days later. We didn't have any time to really prepare. So it was almost like, here's this opportunity, submit your application, go test, get passed through all of the process, the whole hiring process, and then send you to post. And so, it was kind of a blur, to be honest, but so that's kind of my background as far as getting into law enforcement. And I spent almost 13 years between 2 departments. And, you mentioned the LeBron James video. I was with the Bellevue Marshal's office for about 6 months until I posted that video and, got fired for it as a result. But life's been pretty good since then.
Now, you were recently on Dr. Phil talking about cancel culture and everything that's going on. How was that experience?
Yeah. And it was really good for me. From start to finish, the staff there in the studio treated me really well. They were very accommodating. They called me on a Sunday night. I remember one of his assistant producers found me on Instagram and reached out and wanted to know if they could call me. And I said, yeah, sure. So they called me Sunday night and did a quick 30-minute interview about cancel culture. And she said, well, all this stuff sounds really great. We're going to run it by Dr. Phil and the other producers, and then we'll get back to you in the morning with confirmation. So I woke up the next morning to an email with a flight itinerary and a hotel room reservation in Hollywood. Nice. And so, that day, they got me on a plane, got me down there, took me to the studio Tuesday morning. And it was funny because, so I got my own dressing room, they do the hair and makeup. They steamed my suit for me, kind of like this first class treatment. They were all very nice. And I remember standing backstage, kind of waiting because I was the first guest, but I was also kind of the main guest. I got to sit up on stage with Dr. Phil, and so they had me wait backstage, and Dr. Phil comes out, they do the whole big introduction, and he introduces me and kind of gives a little bit of my backstory so that people know, who I am. And I'm looking around at the stage and I'm going, I'm about to go on the Dr. Phil show, because, and it just hit me because I've been watching Dr. Phil for like the last 20 years. He's been on the air forever. And I'm
Right.
like, yeah, this is really cool, and I wasn't real nervous. I mean, I didn't sleep much the night before because I was sort of going over all of the possible questions that they might ask me and what my responses would be to those questions. But it was, I thought it was a pretty good discussion. I mean, there were people kind of on both sides of that cancel culture aisle, if you will. And I had to respond to a few people who weren't so appreciative of the LeBron video and kind of explain to them, I'm like, look, this is not, for me, this is not about race. This is about an overprivileged, entitled superstar athlete who is making it about race, right? Who is making it seem
Right.
like there's a pandemic in this country of police officers shooting and killing Black Americans, and it just goes unchecked and they go unpunished and there's no justice. And my video was meant to be funny, but it was also meant to send a message. And I'm sure it got the response that it did because LeBron James happens to be Black. But that it was crazy, the aftermath of that, where it seems like it struck a chord on both sides of the aisle. Half the country loved it and the other half hated it. Half the country was very supportive and, did what they could to back me on it. And the other half just wanted me dead. And it was crazy to see just, how much outrage the people on the left. I mean, because let's be honest, those are the anti-police. That's the anti-police group, the people on the left. But
well, let me cut you off. Let me cut you off real quick. They're not.
Sure.
They're anti-police until they either need us or it's politically expedient for them to be so.
Right.
So,
No,
I'm sorry, man. But
no. I agree with you 100%. Which is kind of funny because if you think that if they actually accomplished their anti-police objective, which some of the cities actually did, right, and in 2020 and 2021, and then started sort of backpedaling with that as crime rates skyrocketed. They're like, oh damn, maybe we actually do need the cops around. But as far as the Dr. Phil show goes, I mean, he was nice to me. He was. He was very neutral on that topic. He wanted to facilitate a discussion surrounding, cancel culture and sort of like this woke mentality that people have. He told me privately that he backs the blue, which is sad that he can't actually say that on national television. But I got to go backstage after we were done recording and talk to him for a minute and take some photos. And I met his wife, Robin, and she was very sweet. So the experience was, for me, it was great. I know that people have sort of mixed feelings about Dr. Phil, and some other people have had some bad experiences, being on his show. But for me, it was wonderful.
Okay, great. I mean, that's I think I remember defending you when I saw that video for the first time. And I said, it's entirely possible to either dislike someone or criticize them, and it has nothing to do with race.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I remember saying, LeBron is this kid that since high school, people have been kissing his ass over and over again.
Yeah.
He can play basketball really well. And, we all knew about him in high school. And then he came to the NBA where everybody was like, oh, I want him on my team. And I mean, to me, I'm not a fan of his because, I think we've watched the progression of one of the biggest crybabies you've ever seen in your life. He's like that kid that's been given everything. And as soon as he loses, which he's done quite frequently, as soon as he loses, he either wants to leave and run to another team or he's complaining that, I don't have any help. Listen, I grew up watching Michael Jordan play.
Mm-hmm.
And Jordan never said, I don't have enough help. The only reason I didn't win is because of X, Y, and Z. Meanwhile, LeBron, literally every time he loses, he goes, "Oh, woe is me, woe is me." Mm-hmm. So when I saw your video, I was like, "Yes, someone's checking this overgrown man, baby."
Yep.
Dude. Hey, listen. Someone else said it. I'll repeat it. Shut up and dribble. That's what you're good at. That's what you're good at. No one asks you about your political opinion. No one asks you about what you think of the president or this or social justice. Dude, just shut up and dribble. That's what you're good at. Stick to that,
Well, that's why he's a billionaire. He's not a billionaire because of his, political perspective. Like you said, nobody cares because he's uneducated on everything except for basketball. He went to the NBA right out of high school, and I'm not trying to say that he's inferior, but like you say, he's good at basketball. He's not good at this political stuff. He's definitely not good at objectively analyzing police use of force incidents. We all know that. So stick with what you're good at. I wouldn't presume to tell LeBron how to play basketball. Although, like you mentioned, I see his games, and I see that whenever he misses a shot, he's always crying to the refs, like, somebody foul me, like, where's the foul? And like, instead of going and playing defense, he's trying to argue his case with the refs about how he should have gotten the foul call. It's like, dude, they're scoring on your team while you're bitching to the refs. Come on. And walking off the court with time left, in the game. It's like, dude, like you said, Michael Jordan, he didn't do any of that stuff. Michael Jordan took responsibility for the losses, just like he did the wins, and then if they lost, he was at practice busting his ass and pushing his teammates to bust their asses too. And he didn't cry in the media. Like you said, he wasn't shifting the blame to anybody else. It was like, you know what, we're going to take this L, but we're going to come back. We're going to work harder and we're going to win next time. And it would be wonderful if LeBron had that same energy, but it's not. It's this entitlement and then victim mentality on the court, just like he puts on display with things outside the court.
Exactly. I mean, me personally though, this whole cancel culture has just gotten out of hand. Like, like one of the most toxic things I ever saw was when the singer Adele lost weight. Like, people were like, "Oh, let's cancel her. How dare she lose weight? She's fat phobic because she lost weight." No, she lost weight because she looked in the mirror, wasn't happy, and made a decision about herself to lose weight. But you have to, she had to be fat to make people feel better about themselves, or God forbid you have an opinion that goes against the grain. Listen, I don't want drag queens giving my little girl a lap dance. Oh yeah, oh look at that. You're this phobic, you're that phobic. Like, I'm just waiting for people to start defending crackheads now. Hey, listen, I don't want to say you're a crackhead. Oh, you're crack phobic. So I mean, I personally, I think it's gotten out of hand.
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's nothing virtuous or decent or good about cancel culture. Again, it just promotes this victim mentality, this entitlement mentality. And I said this on the Dr. Phil show, and they didn't actually air this part of the show. It was edited out. But towards the end of the show, I said, I think what we're seeing is a failure on the part of parents on a very large scale to teach their children that they're going to encounter things throughout their lives that they don't agree with, that might cause them some discomfort for a few seconds, or that might be shocking, or, that might not align with their political, religious, or social beliefs. But that's okay. But instead of it just kind of accepting that that's reality, right? Nobody agrees with everybody all the time, or else we wouldn't be where we are today if that were the case. I mean, we have to have a free exchange of ideas with people either accepting or rejecting those ideas, and accepting the ones that or that come from the most competent people in every industry, right? We want the most competent doctors doing heart surgeries. We want the most competent attorneys handling our criminal cases, our civil cases, right? We want the most competent engineers building space shuttles and airplanes and things like that. We don't want somebody who is sort of pushed into those positions because of some sort of identifying characteristic, whether it's race or gender or sexual orientation. That's just a recipe for disaster. But instead of parents teaching their children those things, they teach them, listen, you're entitled to go your entire life without ever being offended. And if someone offends you, you have the right to attack that person because of the words that they said. And I think that's where it starts, is, back at home with parents teaching their kids to have thick skin, to believe whatever it is they want to believe, but also know that other people have the right to believe the things that they choose to believe. And that's okay. That's how it's supposed to be.
Exactly. I completely agree. Now, I see you on TikTok, and I have a lot of respect for your viewpoints because you call it as you see it, which I love. If you see videos of cops doing something wrong, you call cops out on that. If you see videos of other people doing stuff wrong, you come to that. But I always felt like as police, we're almost like, I don't want to say a dying breed, but we're definitely endangered, because recruitment's down. Just about every department I know of, and I've been blessed to be able to talk to a lot of different departments and talk to a lot of different cops. Morale is down nationwide, especially in blue cities. Cops are leaving the job faster than they can hire new cops. You've got cops who are second, third generation who are telling their children, don't get into this profession.
Right.
I know your great grandfather was a cop, your grandfather, I'm a cop, but I want something different for you.
Yeah.
Do you see this turning around at any point? Because I mean, it's getting to a point, like I think Portland, either Portland or Seattle PD, one of them, like they don't have a class, and cops are retiring and leaving. So what's going to happen to that jurisdiction? Do you see it turning around at any point?
Boy, that's a tough question. I think maybe with the midterms, tomorrow, hopefully, if we have the red wave that I hope that we have, and I don't want to say I expect it, because I didn't expect Joe Biden would be the president. But here we are. So I'm hoping that we see a huge shift in leadership in this country. And I think if we do have that shift, then maybe there's hope, there's a light at the end of the tunnel as far as this war on police officers. And I don't think we're going to get there unless we start holding people accountable, like these DAs who are prosecuting officers who are justified in the use of force, the amount of force that they're using. And not even just police, but also like with the Kyle Rittenhouse case. I mean, we're seeing this trend of district attorneys and prosecuting attorneys who are becoming woke, right? They're capitulating the demands of the woke mob, instead of being willing to fight against, and quell these riots and this unrest that occurs whenever there's a police use of force that the general public just doesn't understand, even though it might be justified. Instead of fighting against that, they're instead taking the easy way out and prosecuting police officers for doing their job. Now, police officers can handle so many things. They can handle the criticism from the media and, from residents in their communities. They can handle criticism from elected officials. But what I think where they draw the line, obviously, is going to prison for being justified in a use of force. I mean, that's where you get police officers going, okay, I can handle everything else, but if you're gonna send me to prison because I made the right choice, then no deal. And it's no wonder you have people walking off the job in mass, because, I mean, who would want to do that job, right? It doesn't make any sense. Anybody with a modicum of common sense would go, okay, so hold on. So I mean, I got to deal with the bullets, and I got to deal with the blood and the dead bodies and all of that stuff, and the trauma that I'm exposed to every single day, which nobody gives a shit about, right? But you're telling me that I'm also in danger of being prosecuted and convicted of a crime that I didn't commit, because a prosecutor would rather do that than actually deal with the reaction of emotionally charged people who don't understand police work at all.
Well, that actually brings us back to the whole LeBron incident, because LeBron is putting his expert opinion, quote unquote expert opinion, and the officer had less than a second to make a reaction.
Yeah.
With this stabbing incident with Ma'Khia Bryant. And here comes LeBron, he should have tried to de-escalate the situation. LeBron, spell de-escalate, first of all. And second of all, what was he supposed to say in the half second before this girl took the knife out and was looking to legitimately stab someone else?
Yeah.
LeBron, go back to pretending to read your Malcolm X book. We don't. No one asked you for your opinion, but here you are. Well, you should have de-escalated the situation, and he should have done this. And if I had been there, LeBron, if you had been there, everybody on the scene would have been dead. Okay.
Yeah.
Stop trying to play around.
Yeah. It's funny because he talks about accountability in that tweet that I and a lot of other officers responded to. I wasn't the only one that did a video about that. There were so many officers on TikTok alone that, mocked him because of that tweet. And, he used that hashtag accountability. It's like, LeBron has 50 million, or at least at the time he had over 50 million followers just on Twitter. he has a responsibility to really check what he says, because we all know that, I mean, if you got that many followers, there's going to be a large contingent of those followers that take what LeBron says as gospel. And a lot of people
Yes.
interpreted that tweet as a threat against that officer and against law enforcement in general. And we saw an influx of police ambushes in the months following that tweet. And I think LeBron James is culpable for that. And now that's speculation on my part because I don't have any proof of it. You know, it's not like these guys came out and said, well, I did this because LeBron James tweeted this. None of them said that. But if you have the kind of influence that LeBron James has, I believe you have the responsibility more than a lot of other people to really watch what you say on social media, because it can have a lasting impact on police officers or on, you know, on people that you choose to target with your tweets.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, like I said, whatever respect I might have had for LeBron just dissipated after that incident, you know, because he made the jobs of cops harder just with a tweet, you know, and I still remember he had a picture of a cop and he said, "You're next." And as law enforcement, we all took that as, well, what do you mean you're next? You know, like, what are you trying to say? I mean, he dialed it back, you know, and then of course, you know, they all do. He dialed it back. Oh, well, you know, I just meant X, Y, and Z. But, you know, LeBron, you know, like I said, just shut up and dribble.
Yeah.
But,
he deleted that tweet and then posted a follow-up tweet saying he deleted it because it was being used to spread more hate, which I find funny. And, you know, he posts this incendiary tweet about Officer Reardon from Columbus, Ohio, and then blames everybody else for spreading hate. You know, it's like a typical gaslighting from the left.
Well, it's typical LeBron. You know, he lost, and, you know, well, you know, if I just had help, if I just, you know, if this happened, if that happened, you know, so it's typical LeBron. But, you know, you mentioned the midterms, which is, you know, we're recording this on the Monday before Super Tuesday, you know, election day. And, you know, we have a bunch of important elections coming up, you know, here in New York. You know, we have a chance to put a bona fide law and order governor in the seat. And in a couple other places, you know, you've got Herschel Walker, who I've actually been able to talk to a little bit. We follow each other on Twitter.
Nice.
He's running for Senate. You have, you know, in Pennsylvania, you've got Dr. Oz versus John Fetterman, which I don't know how he got this far. I wouldn't trust John Fetterman to change a light bulb for me. And somehow this guy is going to be making important decisions in the Senate. Someone's got to explain that one to me. Yeah. I said before, he looks like the grown-up version of that thing from Lord of the Rings. You know, I had my precious, you know. He looks like the grown-up. Yeah, he looks like the grown-up version of that, you know.
Yeah.
But you got Carrie Lake in Arizona. So we've got an opportunity to make some real change in this country. If I'm going to thank Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for one thing, it's going to be that they screwed up so badly that the rest of the country is going, oh, hell no, we got to do something different.
Indeed.
What do you see happening?
Well, I see. I mean, if I'm being hopeful and optimistic, I see. Like I said, I see a major shift in leadership in this country. I've been saying for the last 2 years that if we don't have an overhaul in Congress, and, you know, not just a red wave, but we have to replace some of the rhinos in Congress too. These Republicans who ran with an R next to their name, but they're not really doing anything to combat the damage that the Democrats have done to this country. They're just kind of sitting back and letting it happen and not really putting up a fight. And I understand that they're outnumbered in Congress, but that doesn't mean you can't at least throw a wrench in the gears of their plan to, you know, pass these big spending packages that, you know, have just put us in the hole and have ruined our economy. But, you know, and each individual state, for the most part, has, you know, pretty important decisions to make as far as their local leadership. I mean, I know here in Idaho, you know, the governor's seat, you know, is up, and we have a current governor right now, again, who is sort of that rhino type of Republican. You know, he's got that R next to his name, but, you know, when the pandemic hit and all of the other Democratic leadership all over the rest of the country were locking down their cities, locking down their states, implementing, you know, mask mandates and things like that, and these very restrictive policies, he fell right in line with that. and so many Idahoans lost businesses. It was, the damage done was just astronomical. And so to get him out and replace him, with, I mean, the governor that's running against him is an independent, and that's pretty uncommon in Idaho. Idaho has usually been a very conservative, Republican, straight down the ticket. But he's going to, this current, the sitting governor is going to get a run for his money, I think, tomorrow. And going back to the Oz and Fetterman race, I have a hard time believing that the poll numbers are accurate. I mean, because they're neck and neck, really. I mean, how is that possible that a man that can't even string together 3 coherent sentences is tied for that senator spot with a very intelligent person, like a doctor, who is lucid, he's coherent, he knows the issues, he can speak publicly pretty fluidly and eloquently. And like you said, we have Gollum on the other side of the debate stage, just fumbling over his sentences. Okay, great, he had a stroke. That's too bad. But why is he in this race? That tells me that the Democrats are so desperate and they didn't have a viable candidate in Pennsylvania for that spot. And so they chose a man who has a legitimate cognitive disability, and they put him in there so that they could get sympathy votes, and that people that didn't vote for him, they can label as ableist and non-sympathetic and insensitive, and accuse you of being bigoted because you didn't vote for the guy. And so they're going to continue to attack the Americans that didn't vote for him, just like they do with everything else.
Well, now that you're mentioning someone that's that the Democrats put up there who has cognitive issues and can't function and can't string together 3 words. So how do you think Biden's going to do in 2024? No.
I don't think Biden's going to make it to 2024, to be honest. I mean, his mental health is, and again, cognitive abilities decline by the day. I don't see him making it another 2 years, if I'm being perfectly honest. But if he does, I mean, we're going to continue to see that decline, in his mental faculties, and he's going to be out. There's no way that, I mean, the Democratic Party is going to actually prefer him to be the incumbent. And if they do, it's suicide for the Democratic Party as far as the presidency goes. I mean, we could put somebody from a high school student body in as a Republican candidate, and they would probably win. So I don't see it going very well for Joe Biden.
Last question before I let you go. As law enforcement, as someone that's investigated crimes and all that, is anything from the Pelosi case making sense to you?
Not at all. I did a video about that I posted to TikTok a few days ago. And to me, it seems like this was like a towel snapping incident with, it was that somehow went awry. And I don't know, I think what happened is he accidentally called 911, and all of those things that you heard, that at least they're being reported as to what he said, was a conversation that the dispatchers weren't supposed to hear. And I think the cops showed up to this residence not knowing exactly what they were walking into. And again, I haven't seen any pictures of Paul Pelosi. I know that he was released from the hospital, but I haven't seen photos of his head. He was supposed to have a skull fracture that he was going to recover from. I haven't seen photos of his injuries. We're not going to ever see the videos, the surveillance from inside the home, or the body camera footage. I'm certain that all of that stuff has been destroyed. So I think this was probably like, an erotic, romantic entanglement between 2 men that somehow, that got leaked. And the Democratic Party is desperately trying to cover that up and make it look like some right-wing extremist broke into their house and attacked because, it's Trump's fault. It's the Republicans' fault because it's always Trump's fault. So again, but as far as from a criminal investigation, criminal investigative standpoint, nothing makes sense that they're telling us in the news.
Yeah, it's like every time they try to fix this and okay, this is the new story. Like, wait, I got questions, man.
So many questions.
Like we're not letting this go. No, hold up.
Yeah. Well, NBC did a story on it a few days ago that they subsequently removed. They deleted it off of their website, and Fox News kept a copy of it. And they're like, wait a second, hold on, what?
Yeah.
Just again, it raised more questions than provided answers. And so, but again, I don't think we're ever going to get the full story or the accurate, true story. I doubt very much that what I would like to see is the surveillance footage from inside the home. I'm sure that this guy, what is his name? David DePape. I'm sure he probably showed up because of an invitation from Paul Pelosi. And then for whatever reason, it got out of hand, and to what extent, I don't think we'll ever really know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Officer Nate, tell us where we can find you on all the social media.
Oh boy, let's see. So, the Officer Nate or Officer Nate or a variation of those on Instagram, it's the Officer Nate, all one word, all lowercase. Officer Nate on Facebook, Officer Nate on YouTube, Officer Nate 1.0, and Officer Nate 1.2 on TikTok. And you can find my my podcast on Spotify and Apple. It's the Officer Nate podcast. My book you can order on bluelivesfoundation.org. So yeah.
What's the title of your book?
Never Off Duty. It's about police work. Everything you don't know about police work. Everything that everything that cops are afraid to talk about because they know that there's going to be backlash from their administrators or backlash from the media. I was fortunate enough to be able to tell my story and things that were unique to me. Unique law enforcement experiences that I had, but also shared experiences among the law enforcement industry as a whole. I talk about the LeBron James video and the aftermath of that in my book. And I also dedicate a few chapters to sort of teaching people how we can kind of bridge the gap between law enforcement and the general population, because there's obviously a disconnect there. And unfortunately, we have to fight the mainstream media, and they're sort of a Goliath organization. But it can be done, through podcasts like yours and mine. I've been on several podcasts where people are very pro law enforcement and trying to spread the right message. But yeah, the book is about, basically the premise is about the reality of police work.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Also, just thanks for coming on here. Like I said, I became an instant fan of yours as soon as I saw that video. It went viral, and I've just been watching you, and you have a lot to say. That's, just great. And thanks for being a representative for all of law enforcement. We need as many voices as we can out there, just spreading the word about the facts of what cops do, not speculation, not secondhand stories, not hints, allegations. And you're out there being one of the voices. So thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right. And for everybody else, this is your boy, the Original Cop with Attitude, Zeke Arkham. And as always, I got your 6. Thank you. God bless and good night.